the cloud.
Welcome to episode 2 of Guy Talk. I'm Joe with Proud Masculine, and joining me is Red Pill Thor.
Thor's
At
here, guys.
Thor's here, and you can follow him at Red Pill Thor, and you can follow me at Proud Masculine on Instagram. Yeah, I'm gonna change it right here. And for any services rendered one-on-one, you can reach me at schedule me at proudmasculine.com. Or for Thor services, you can just DM him on Instagram. So, yeah, we were talking off screen about your video you put out today about vetting for an LTR. For those who don't know what an LTR is, a long-term relationship. And I saw it. It's a phenomenal video, a lot of great points. And I think one of the key contributors is your age in your life experience and having been in a long-term relationship, a marriage for 27 years. So let's touch on that a little bit. Like, what would you have
Sure.
to offer? Because, and I know this, that, when you're younger, it's fun. You get to date a lot. You date non-exclusively. It's non-monogamous. You're just dating around. But I think at some point in most men's lives, you look for that, somebody that you can just be exclusive with, or, at least be in a long-term situation with, however you arrange it, it's your business. But and so you want that to be a quality experience. You don't want to be into this long-term thing with somebody who you're sharing your life with every day, and it'd be a big shit show where you're fighting all the time, and the sex dies out. She lets herself go. What I mean.
Absolutely. I appreciate the kind words. That was my very first content piece. I've put some inspirational stuff out there about, self-improvement, working out, and things like that, just as an introduction. And I've been working on a list of what might be valuable or added values that you'd want to look for in a long-term relationship. Much like you say, when you're out there dating, at least when I came up, I'm 57 years old, soon to be 58. Dating was non-monogamous. You dated for the purposes of screening these folks out to find somebody very compatible with you so that you could plan a partnership together. Now, in the day, it was standard to become monogamous, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can have a long-term relationship for many, many years, non-monogamous, and those arrangements are very personal and private, and it would be between the two partners. So for the purposes of this, it can be monogamous or non-monogamous, but a long-term relationship can be a marriage or not a marriage. I wouldn't recommend marriage today, primarily because marriage is so skewed in the favor of the state and the system that supports divorce, and it's pretty harmful to your family. I would not engage in a marriage, and or if I engaged in a long-term relationship, I would have some sort of contract, civil contract, to protect certain assets that I would bring into the relationship. At least that's my opinion today, and that's how I've counseled my sons and my guys. Uh, Also, to go along with the long-term relationship, this list isn't really for short-term relationships. However, there's lots of red flags out there that guys can look for in the short term, and there's lots of added values that you can add in the short term too that you want to look out for. But remember this: when you're in a short-term relationship and you're very sexually compatible, things are pretty good. You end up with a brain chemistry where you're kind of high all the time on the endorphins and the oxytocin, right? I mean, it feels good. It's real prominent in the women. They get real excited and possessive and excited. It's called the honeymoon phase, right?
Mm.
That eventually wears off. What do you have after that? That's kind of what this added value list that I did yesterday is all about. So the added values that I like to talk about on there, to me, make a lot of sense. But what I realized when I was on Jonathan's show, Interview with a Man, a lot of the responses I got is a lot of guys didn't know. They didn't understand what to look for. They couldn't believe that I was married 27 years and yet I have this story, right? Um, I felt a lot of guys that were asking me questions privately for some advice in this on long-term relationships really didn't know what the added values were specifically. And by no means was my list complete, but they also didn't have a really good understanding of what the added liabilities or red flags. I don't like to call them red flags in the long-term relationship. Red flags are those flags you see earlier in a relationship that are indicators that you could have trouble in the future, right?
Right. A red flag, just an indicator that this could
Just an
be
indicator.
problematic behavior, a repeated problematic behavior going
And
forward.
what they turn into over time is added liabilities to your life. They detract from your relationship market value and or sexual market value, right? It could be as simple as something physical. I know we're going through the body positivity movement right now. She gained
Mm-hmm.
70 pounds. Really, that's a self-care issue. If she's unwilling to take care of herself, how could she possibly take care of you or her children with any authority? That's a serious question. You know, she's really relying on all those around her in the state to take care of her. So, in a way, she's really incompetent in those areas. Society would kill me for saying something like that. How dare I say something like that? But really, that's what the list it was intended to do. It was, and part of that added liabilities was for a guy that's in a long-term relationship, say he's 10 years in, and he's suffering some of the things. Just for instance, on the liability side, I mean, things that drive guys crazy is, does she require your attention all the time? Is she hounding you at work all day, day in and day out, right? Is she forcing you to do chores? Has she withheld sex from you, right? When you're in the mood and she's not, how does she handle your sexual needs then? These things add up over time. And by the way, if you're not getting sex from your woman and you're in a long-term relationship because she's just not interested anymore, let me tell you a little something. This is an honest truth about women, Joel. You already know this. They're very sexual creatures. They will never admit to this, even to themselves, but they go without sex for a length of time. This builds up in their subconscious. They are sexual, they are visual. And you know what? Chad stands next to him for 5 minutes. The next day she's crying the blues to you saying, I don't know what happened. It just happened. It breaks, all hell breaks loose. Yep. And it does frequently on girls' nights out or trips to Vegas, business trips, right? One of
Deal
the common
breakers in
things.
my book. Deal breakers. No way.
Yes, they can. And here's the sad thing about it. They sit there and they're not interested in sex because they've lost attraction for whatever reason. It's still a choice that they've made. And they're not being fulfilled sexually. That builds up and needs to go somewhere, even with them, just like it does with us. Hey, if you're going to go without sex, Joe, for a week or two, what are you going to do? If it's me, I'm going to subcontract it out. Sorry.
You know the answer to that.
Yeah,
I think in a
No,
marriage, if you're not getting sex from your wife, you have my permission and my blessing to go get it elsewhere.
yes, that's the purpose of subcontracting it out.
Mm.
There is now. She has first right of refusal.
Right?
That is part of your agreement, right?
Yes, yes. She has.
And and then as we go through this list, it gets deadlier and deadlier. The point where you're driving down in the car, this may seem minor, but it's happened to so many guys that I know because it seems like every power lineman has a starter wife. And then I looked out across the entire nation. It looks like every man has a starter wife. It's just the nature of the relationships today. And there's a lot of commonalities. Guys are driving down the street. It's silent in the car. He looks out to start some conversation to try to increase the mood. And he says, wow, the sky's really blue today. And she looks over and says, it's not blue. It's actually kind of purple gray. Well, when they're projecting that kind of contempt at you and willingness to disagree with the most minor things, there's a deep, boiling problem here. Deep. Guys fail to recognize this all the time. When that happens, he needs to look inward at himself and start saying, what am I doing in this relationship to improve my attractiveness to all women? Because when he looks at he needs to be honest. When he's getting that kind of contempt thrown at him, that's a real death knell if you don't do something quickly.
And I was going to actually ask you about that. And look, that's a great list for vetting for LTRs because all of the items on that list that you discuss are crucial to a long-term, healthy, sexually active, peaceful relationship, you know as well as I do, at some point, you're going to deal with shit. Attraction wanes, attraction goes up and down. That's normal. But, and so part of the responsibility here is how are you showing up? Are you keeping up with your shit? Are you still getting her wet? Are you still being interesting enough to where she wants to talk? Or are you carrying yourself and leading the relationships enough to where she does respect you and doesn't want to disagree with you on minor things? Because that shit matters too.
I could tell you how to fix that and how I fixed that in a couple of relationships. Both partners are overweight. They're lazy. They're not taking care of their stuff. And I'll tell you this, as soon as I got to them, I had some help, but I got to them and said, look, you have to take care of yourself. I want you to start, and I want you to put in your mind that you have to be sexy, not for him, but for yourself and all men around you. I need you have to become sexy to men around you. And on his side, he has to become the object of other women's desires. That takes a ton of that contempt and throws it away. Both of them lost 20 pounds in 6 weeks. They start dressing different. Hairstyles are different. And just because of the nature of them taking self-care into interest, it actually made them grow closer together. Now, there's an underlying attraction that just, it's underlying law that, you've heard it before, self-confidence, presence, all of those intangible things. A lot of it is self-care, it's confidence, it's not being lazy in the relationship, it's taking care of yourself first, and then you can take care of others. And that's kind of what I taught the couple is you have to make yourself priority. She was complaining about him. He'd get home after a 12-hour day and he would walk in the house and she cleaned it all day. That's what she did. She cleaned and she would stay at home. And she was mad because he would sometimes track a little bit of dirt in that entry. And she would give him shit all night about it. And then they ended up with having sex. And it's like, sometimes just let the man come home and relax for a minute. Don't address it as soon as he comes in. You're setting the tone for the whole night.
Mm-hmm.
Address it at another time. Well, guess what? She ended up doing that and letting everything go when he comes in, let him calm down, do his thing, and then have your dinner. And at another time, just ask him, could you put your shoes outside so I don't have to re-clean it? And boom, compliant. They're good to go. Seems like an easy fix, right? But as soon as he walked in the door, was there a hello, I missed you all day? No. You know what it was? You just got dirt on my floor that I just cleaned all day.
I've been cleaning all day.
Not good, right? Well, guess what he was doing? He was out under semi trucks getting hot molten metal from his his TIG welder falling down on him while he's trying to make a living to pay for the house and the cars and the school for their family and the whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what he was doing. And then drive an hour and 15 minutes home in traffic. He had a little bit of dirt on the shoe. I think you get the point. But she lost sight of it.
I've been there.
She lost sight of it, and he lost sight of the consideracy for her. That wasn't just a one-way thing.
No.
So approach is everything, and also there was some self-care issues there, the same ones I addressed before as far as taking care of yourself.
And as far as those issues go, well, like in that scenario where you come in, you track and hustle a little bit.
You might have been there, huh?
Oh, absolutely, I am. Absolutely. And in my mind, I'm thinking, really, is that such a big fucking deal that you have to open your mouth about that right now? Like, I just walked in the door.
Yeah.
How about a, hey, nice to see you first? And then on her end, she's not feeling understood. You thinking she's just bitching the bitch. And I can tell you where I've gone wrong in this situation is I react and I become combative and that's not our place as men to jump into that, her emotional frame and start acting like her and reacting emotionally, becoming extremely reactive. Like, I just walked in, what's your problem? Like, is that big of a deal? Now you've just invalidated her whole day's work and purpose by telling her, is it that big of a deal? In her mind, it's a big fucking deal. She just put all day into that. And in my mind, I'm like, I was an iron worker. I've been climbing steel all day, welding, smashing my fingers, sitting in uncomfortable beams for, hours at a time, and
Mm-hmm.
you worried about some crumbs on the fucking floor, yeah, it is a big deal. And so, yeah, she could definitely wait a minute. Like, all right, let him come in, unwind, decompress a little bit. But he could also, and I'm saying I also could have not reacted. But you don't know
Oh,
this
there's
shit.
definitely lessons there. Some of these lists could be reversed. It doesn't necessarily have to be female side. This is just a male perspective, but by no means, some of these can be absolutely reversed. I mean, when I mentioned the added liabilities, I talked about, if you have these in your life and you can be, I mean, really, you'd have to be a very high level simp to make this relationship last, but I guess you could do that. Or, in some ways, you could do some of these things here, and it could reverse a little bit. You could be that needy person that's constantly texting her on the phone. Who knows? She might be the one out there making a living or whatever. These things are hurtful in the long run. You have to be considerate of the other person.
I'll tell you, one of the things that really stood out is how does she present you when you're not around or when you are around together? Like, did she always have your back? Because I've also been in a situation where it was funny to degrade the man or belittle the man. Oh, he's always doing this, and then everybody laughs. That's
It's
not
never
funny.
funny.
That's not funny.
Nope.
That woman has zero respect for you in that moment when she's,
That is a loss of respect, even if she's using it jokingly, and it is borderline contemptuous. And there's a lot to be said for that. A lot of people say, "I'm just joking." They do that as a cover because it is really disrespectful and hurtful, and they're trying to diffuse what they just did. I have very little tolerance for that. I'll tell you
and what,
this. I'll use myself as an example. When I'm in a social environment and I meet new people and we start talking, sometimes you talk about your relationship. I'll point over there to Mrs. Thor and go, God damn, look at that woman. Isn't she just flipping gorgeous? Look at her. She's so freaking hot. I'm going to run over there. And I'm going to, she does everything. They don't know that it's my wife, but, I'll do things like that. But, I like to be proud of her and her accomplishments in public. And I'll never talk her down for any of that. That's been an agreement from day one.
no,
In fact,
and
we
I think
talk about those things, and her too. She's extremely proud of her man. And, at the end of the day, that's what I end up being, right?
and an important and real important strength in a long-term relationship is a united front. No matter what the fuck is going on behind closed doors, you never bring that shit out in the open and show that to other people. You deal with that behind closed doors in a respectful way with one another. You never
Mm-hmm.
bring that shit out in the open. Like, if you
It's just,
aggravated, like, you never put that out in front of people and expose,
right.
an issue or a disagreement or anything you may be displeased with. Like,
Society likes to make that a norm, though. You'll see it in your news media. You'll see it on your comedies. The guy's always the brunt of the jokes. It's been that way for quite a while. It's definitely a big part of how people are conditioned, and it's wrong. It does tear you down over time. You are the king and the queen.
mm,
I mean, even some of the religions will support that. They'll say, happy wife, happy life. Well, not really true.
not true.
It's a good wife, a great life. That's the truth. And so, how do you get that good wife? It's just not born into them. They need to have the added value to the table, which, by the way, if they have those added values after a period of time, it actually increases their sexual market value view to you. They become
Absolutely.
better, more sexy, very, very important. Um, yeah, some of these that you end up going through is, how do you, in a long run, how do you handle your finances? Believe it or not, many people struggle over finances. In
Oh,
a healthy relationship,
that's huge. That's
you
huge.
should have more than one account that you're each responsible for. Yes, you may be signatories on those accounts, but you would better have separate accounts. Yes, you need it because you need to act like a grown adult and not abdicate your financial authority to anybody. Otherwise, you're asking for relationship problems. Straight up.
Mhm.
Um, Definitely. If you find yourself arguing more than 3% of the time you're together, there's an issue. You're going to have to iron it out. That's something you can vet early on. Also, I mean, we talked about,
Well,
the
that
amount
could
of
be throughout the whole relationship, right? Because there's
whole
shit that can pop
relationship.
up.
Hmm.
You just got to have an awareness that, okay, this seems
Yeah.
to be coming up a lot. Let's see what's
Yep.
really going on. What's the underlying issue?
Here's something you can look for too. Is she your long-term relationship? Is she influence her friends? Is she the influencer of her family
Mm.
and her friends? That's actually really important.
Oh,
Because if she's influenced by her family and friends, I can tell you, I've seen this so many times in my life working with guys where, three of her best girlfriends get a wild hair. They do a weekend in Vegas and one of them's single. And the next thing I know, they're all watching and reading these books, Eat, Pray, Love, and fantasizing about a divorce and, you know, getting some space. I need some space. Well, guess what? Like I said in my video, if you don't know what space is when they're asking for space, I'm the space. That's me. So they don't need you. They need the space. That's a big problem. But yes, friends that influence and women are influenced by friends. They're very social creatures.
well, absolutely. And you
It's
don't,
actually an advantage for you that they are influenced, but you must be very selective in who influences them, right?
and you know as
And
well as I do,
mhm,
not all friends are your friends. You have frenemies, especially in chick
you do.
circles,
Oh,
where
you do.
they
High
turn into
competition.
competition. They don't like to see you doing better than them. They
Nope.
don't like to, and they'll start sabotaging shit and
Also,
making it.
one that didn't make the list, you can ask, how charitable is she?
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, really, honestly, is she just a cat lady, or is she charitable to her friends and deserving people and thinks about that stuff, right? So, did you hear that?
I didn't hear, but something keeps flashing.
Yeah, something flashed. Okay,
I
hopefully
think we're
that's off.
being taken over by
I don't
Antifa.
know. Anyway, yeah. So those are important qualities too. I mean, definitely look for those. And if you have any of those, I'll tell you this much. Almost every long-term relationship, if you can catch it at the right moment, you can do a lot of repair. I mean, I truly do believe in Rollo Tomasi's rule. Once it's broken and taken out to the trash and you're done with it, don't go back. It's just pain. But before that moment, a lot of times you can do a lot to fix things. If you haven't hit that rock bottom, you can fix some stuff. And
Well, what
you know
about having an overall awareness? So you go into a long-term relationship, say back in your blue pill days, if you never knew any different, you would never fucking know your relationship was a disaster. You
that's
would
right.
think like a majority of the population,
I'm doing everything right.
I'm doing everything right. I'm doing everything as woman. Women are just bitchy. You know, I get chore. I get uh, obligatory sex, once a week now. And like in social circles, like at work when we used to talk about it, that's the norm. That's what people think is normal. They think
It
that's
is.
normal, healthy.
I was fortunate. Some of these I had to learn by hit and miss. I mean, some of them I knew, but when I truly, like when I read Roll's book in December 2013, it clicked in me, and I didn't have a complete list, but I've been asked a few times about putting my relationship back together and having such a good relationship in public. Is it really like that? Are you guys putting on a show? No, it's not a show. I mean, and we'd be sad if it was over tomorrow, but guess what? We'd get there again. We'd live that dream because we have a plan now. We have a plan for being together and a plan for being apart. It's important. But I had some of these all put together in my head. Like I knew just from having friends that and seeing their long-term relationship partner having victim mindsets where they blame shift everything outside of themselves. That's a very dangerous mindset in the long run because ultimately they'll never take responsibility for anything, yet they'll try to seize all the authority they can.
Well, how can
And
you
that
fix
means
it
in the relationship.
if you think you're not doing anything, if everything outside of you and your relationship's problem, what control do you have over doing something different and fixing it?
It starts to pile up. That stuff, blame shifting, I call it BS because it is BS. Blame shifting, you see it at work, you see it in a lot of social circles. I never do anything wrong. And I'm not some, one to take the road where, oh, to be an apologist all the time. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No, it's not that. But
No, it's
just
not.
to be kind of red pill with yourself and search for the truth. If I have some respect to people saying I'm doing a certain thing, I kind of need to look around and go, well, maybe I am. What the hell, but yeah, I've seen that with some of the gals, just extreme victim entitlement that never has led anywhere good. And I think that early on, if it was addressed with strong masculine activity to set the example, I really do think that some of those folks that I liked would have been saved and better, including the gals. They weren't bad. That's how they acted, and they needed to fix that.
Well, look what happens when you go to the common sources for marriage fixes. Like when you go to marriage counseling, for instance.
Let's
That's
talk
a
about that.
that's a fucking train wreck. Because what does a marriage counselor tell you to do? Your wife will say, "Oh, I feel like I have to do everything. He doesn't help. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. He doesn't understand me. He doesn't listen." So the marriage counselor tells the guy, "Okay, well maybe you need to listen to her, understand her feelings, and tell her how you feel." And we would have sex more if he helped with stuff around the house. But you know as well as I do, that's not the fucking fix. You could do
No, and all
all the
their
chores lead
incentives,
to is more chores.
and chores are ass backwards. They're designed to keep you in that office taking therapy lessons. It's bullshit. Not only is it bullshit, and I'll get some hate for this, but I have experience with this. Yeah, you send somebody to a marriage counselor, you're 90% of the time you're dooming yourself, because those folks are in business for what? They're there for divorce mediation.
Pretty
So
much.
they listen to
Make
those
it a smooth
gals, and the
process.
gals say, I don't know what my purpose is. Well, let's find your purpose. What makes you happy? Oh, 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 my pool boy gave me the tingles. Well, maybe you need some space, hon. Move out. I mean, that's
Mm,
where it goes, and you can't sue these people for these damages.
mm,
And many of them don't really have the life experience or training. They can listen, and they're very cagey. They're very cagey about what they say. They will pose it in such a way so that you get to make the decision. Yet they were really ambiguous on, well, I did say this, and maybe I meant this, and you know, and if you don't like what they said, they'll go, now wait a minute. In my transcript, I didn't actually say that. I just suggested and said you might want to,
mm-hmm.
not to do it. I mean, that's how they are. They're very cagey that way. A lot of political speak with those counselors. And while I'm sure there's some success out there, I've known too many people, experienced it firsthand. And they, not only that, they will lie to you. When you're in marriage counseling, they have privacy agreements with each party, but they will lie to you even when it's in your best interest that they don't. So there's nothing like a Hippocratic oath with those people. Do no harm.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be fully aware of what that racket's all about. I have a lot of distaste for that type of counseling. Now, the counselors that are amazing because they work and because they kind of get rid of their own business is some of the really quality hypnotherapists. Yeah, they teach subconscious. What they do is they make you break habits and establish new ones. That's what I do too. Establish new routines, new thinking routines. You could do it relatively quickly. And that's the beauty. You can do anything you want by establishing new routines. We're creatures of routine and habit. They'll do it, and most of them will say, look, you're going to come here. It's going to be approximately 6 sessions over the course of 4 weeks. And if we can't fix it from there, you're going to need to seek other treatment. Almost all the good ones are like that. There is a fixed point of therapy there. Now, if you just need somebody to talk to, maybe you need somebody else. But as far as that's concerned, a lot of those folks, I've seen a lot of success in the certified hypnotherapists. They
And
definitely do things.
let me make clear, I'm not knocking therapy because sometimes
Mm-hmm.
there's men who just need somebody to go talk to
Yeah,
because they don't have
yeah,
anybody. And you don't want to do that with your woman. You don't want her to bear the burden of your
no,
problems or your complaints or your whining. That so a counselor is a good outlet just to be a
can
sounding
be.
board, right? So you don't have to go necessarily seeking for answers from them.
No, you
because
can actually seek a coach or a life optimizer. That's what you do.
mm,
You could do that. And that's a good thing because you have a lot of experience with guys that have had some issues, and you can kind of get them to come to a clear mind. And yeah,
and that's
sometimes
what
you
it's
need to
about.
just let some stuff go, right?
And here's the thing also, take exception with these marriage counselors, male or female, is
Mm-hmm.
that A, you see a huge number of these people that are like in their early 20s, mid 20s, haven't been married. Like, how can they advise you on how to have a healthy marriage and long-term relationship? And they have no idea what any of that dynamic is about.
No, and they
Everything
don't
they
even
know,
have a list of added values that increase attraction and increase appreciation over time. If you go to the added values here, it makes you appreciate things moving forward. It makes you want. I mean, you come. Dude, I mean, I don't know about you, but even if I had a really tired day and I show up at home and I'm smelling my favorite food and my woman's wearing my favorite dress, I know something's going to get good. And I appreciate that. And not only do I appreciate that, she's going to know that I appreciate it and how much. So, yeah, for a long time.
very true. And then, yeah, so, yeah, and they never, ever, ever talk about in marriage counseling, not in my experience, I've been a few times, the masculine and feminine role in a relationship.
So
Is
that's very
that being
important.
satisfied? You know, those two people showing up as that in this relationship to make it a healthy relationship. Is there a masculine, feminine polarity that exists there? Or the two people in their roles? That you'd never hear about that. Like that's unspoken. It's unheard of.
No,
Like
that's
it's
a huge point. When there's high masculine energy and high feminine energy together, I mean, it's like a fusion reactor. It's incredible. And in a good way. I
really
mean,
good way.
that synergy makes you better together than you are apart. You
Yes,
gotta
thank you.
you gotta light that fire and get that there together. But that's super important. I think a lot of folks don't know how to quantify that and let folks know, but we've all had glimpses of it and feelings of it. We've had moments of it for sure.
Well, because
So,
it's put in your head now, and even you know from the time you're a kid, and then when you go to these counselors, that you shouldn't be that masculine role. You should be the guy who listens and expresses yourself and tells her how you feel. And that's, I'm not saying you should be an emotionless cold fish, but that's not your role. That's not what attracts a woman to trust in you and believe in you and follow your lead and trust in your strength to be the leader of her and the family is you being able to express yourself. That's not what does it. It's the ability to be unaffected by the emotions, like maybe still have the emotion, but still do what needs to be done in spite of that,
you're right.
right?
That's correct. No, and a masculine man's built for that. Think about it. On a man's side, he has his built-in biological firmware, and his instincts drive that into him. And then what does he do with it? He uses logic and reasoning, and then allows his feelings in, and it allows his emotions in, as he's already made that decision in between his rationality and his feelings. Right. On a woman's
Yeah.
side, it's feelings first, right from those instincts,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's emotion, and then the rationality is applied as she's making the decision. So it's a little bit reversed. So those two together, it's an amazing thing. Uh,
And what happens is after you have come up with a way through the situation or through the obstacle, whatever it may be, through the difficulty, whatever the fucking word you want to stamp in there, what happens on the other end for the man is now you're not emoting to her. You're not vomiting your worries on her. Now you're giving her the solutions. That's what she wants. And that's your place. You can think about this. You can even worry and be stressed and all that, but it's not her burden to bear. It's yours. It's your job to come up with a solution. And if you're going to share with her, you know, you can tell her, like, quick, for instance, you had a fucked up day at work. You know, it was really stressful and She knows you well enough. She can see it written all over your face. But you're not going to go on about, you're not going to come home and she's like, baby, something's wrong. What's going on in your mind? Come on, tell me. And finally, you're not going to say, well, such and such at work has been giving me a rough time and I'm stressed out and I'm really bothered. Like, you're not going to present it to her like that. You're just going to say, yeah, it was a little bit of a rough day. I had some obstacles, some issues, but
She doesn't really want you to present it to her that way.
no, she wants to know that you got it under control. That, okay, you can handle it.
See,
No big deal.
Joe, what you just touched on, maybe that's for you. And that's this list that I created from a man's perspective is from a
Mm-hmm.
woman's perspective. She's going to have a list of added value. And one of those is not to show any weakness, but strength. But women
Right.
have a super hard time admitting that. They will
Yeah.
say they want weakness and all that, but that is not what they were
No, they
attracted
don't.
to.
I'm sure they don't. Now, look, if now and then you are offering some sort of, for lack of better words, a more feminine emotion, and you offer that, then it's received in gratitude from the woman because then she knows it's authentic, and she knows 99% of the time that you on point, that you got the shit under control, that you're unaffected, that you're gonna find a way through, you're gonna make sure everybody stays together and shit's gonna stay good.
That's high
And
attraction.
she will appreciate that emotional
Mm-hmm.
display and take it as something, genuine and authentic and heartwarming. But all you doing is walking around nagging and whining and all the time, and that's a turnoff. And how can she
And
trust? Go ahead.
that's where you and I excel because what we offer our clients is teaching these men how to add value in their own life by adding that value to themselves.
Mhm.
A woman will recognize that value immediately without you having to broadcast it. It's just it's actions, not words. And thereby she is attracted now. And
And
we
you will
offer
know.
that counseling to and coaching to young men so they can, or any men of any age, even if a guy's going through divorce, you can fix these things in yourself relatively quickly. Small actions over time have massive results.
I love that saying. That's
Yes,
so true.
absolutely. It is too. This is a good list, man. You're right on the money. I mean, you're kind of touching on things that a guy has to do. This list in a vacuum is kind of looking right at a guy's list to assess a long term
Hmm.
and vet that along the way. And also kind of to troubleshoot things that might be going wrong. And I'll tell you, some of these things start to go wrong. It's how a woman expresses it because you haven't done your part. Let's be honest here. There's a part for you to do if you're going to do a long-term relationship. You might be the alpha asshole, but if you're going to commit to this, it's game on a different level. And part of that game, the biggest part is you being the best version of you every day that you can be and try to be a better version tomorrow. That's really what it boils down to. And she will follow you. She wants to follow you. I mean, they complain right now. We're all the good men. That's the men we want. Well, yeah. Not every guy is going to sit there and make himself a better version every single day. You know.
Well, and here's the my perspective, and I think you'd agree with this, and a lot of people do who do move into the long-term relationship and marriage realm. Um, you know, Typically you come into the space and you find out, guys, how do I get laid? How do I get
Mm-hmm.
girls? How do I approach? How do I escalate? How do I use this? How do I
Right.
do that? So,
All important stuff. But
no, absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely important. And I tell them, once you learn like basic game, how to, you get over that shit, sex is the easy part. That, meeting chicks, having sex, that's easy. When you got to run game on one chick for over and over every day, somebody who gets to know everything about you, all your ins and outs, all your buttons, all your has seen you sleep, seen all your habits, running game on that one woman, that's a challenge. And that's where the work comes in, is being able to consistently maintain that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Agree?
and the issue is really when a woman's in an LTR in that first, what is it, 5 to 7 years, whatever it is, they're pretty happy about it because that's been their goal for a long time. But
Yeah.
then us guys, we're getting the steady poon, I don't know about you, but getting some of that steady magic pussy juice kind of messes with our head, and we're just kind of like, yeah, I'll just have another beer. I don't need to get up and do anything. Shit, got the best right there. I got steak at home, you know,
Mm-hmm.
steak and lobster, and then pretty soon after a while, you've turned yourself into hamburger. Why does she want hamburger?
Yeah,
There's a lot of steaks out there. Tube steaks, my friend.
a lot.
So yeah, there's responsibility on the man's part as well.
Definitely. And that, you know, we could break off and do a whole nother discussion about that and the benefits it has for you long term as well. So,
Yeah,
but we can't, we don't have time right now. We got to go in a minute.
we'll
But
do it again. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. We got many more to come. So anything else you want to add on to this before we shut it down?
Nope. For me, you know, you can find me at Red Pill Thor. I do performance life coaching and consulting, so you can get a hold of me there. I can organize you. I have this list. It's just not long-term relationship coaching, but I do a little bit of fitness coaching there too. And especially if you're an older guy, we can talk a lot. I have some knowledge on hormone replacement. One of these days, you and I, Joe, got to talk a little bit about TRT and what's
Definitely.
happening with testosterone in men and women in America, because that is kind of an unknown crisis hit, and it affects a lot of people, and it affects them emotionally, and it affects their ability to think. So, you know, as we got an
Definitely.
aging population, that's some interesting stuff there to discuss as well. Anyway, back to Red Pill Thor. I have my first video out. Check it out. I'm hoping to get more out soon. I don't know when, but I have a couple ideas in the oven. We'll see.
Great video. Definitely check it out. And yeah, if you'd like to reach me for one-on-one consultation and talk about a host of things, you can reach me at proudmasculine.com. But as far as our video here, we closing up. Please like, comment, subscribe. And if you have any ideas, any other topics you want to hear discussed, drop it in the comments. And so I think we'll shut it down, huh?
Roger that. See you next time.
All right, man.